Okay, let's dive into this and lay out our roadmap. First, we are looking at the gift of the Nile. Second, the Old Kingdom builders. Third, the Middle Kingdom and invaders. Fourth, the New Kingdom heavyweights. And finally, the final pharaohs.
All right, starting right off with Section 1, the gift of the Nile, the first rise.
So down in the south, which is actually called Upper Egypt, the harsh geography basically locked everyone in. This isolation bred a super fierce, expanding warrior culture. They wore what was known as the White Crown. Meanwhile, up north, in Lower Egypt, things were completely different. It was this laid-back hub for commerce. They wore the Red Crown, they traded with places like Mesopotamia, and they were mostly just chilling out. But here is the thing. Those southern warriors were always aggressively eyeing the northerners. They were just waiting for the perfect moment to strike.
And that moment finally came in 3100 BCE. King Narmer, who some think was actually the son of the Scorpion King, drove his southern army north. He literally steamrolled those laid-back commerce hubs. By doing this, he became the very first pharaoh. He even claimed to be the earthly embodiment of the god Horus. He set up Memphis as his strategic new capital. And with that, the first dynastic period was firmly underway.
Moving right along to Section 2, the Old Kingdom builders, pyramids and silent letters. Let's see how this builds, because this era was all about massive architectural flexes. These overachievers invented paper, they built pyramids, and they even invented the silent letter. In the Third Dynasty, Djoser and his architect Imhotep built the Step Pyramid of Saqqara. Then the Fourth Dynasty cranked it up, giving us the massive Giza pyramids and the Sphinx. But then, things got a little lazy. By the Fifth and Sixth Dynasties, the pharaohs got totally sick of administrative work. They started delegating boring tasks, like zoning and sanitation, to regional governors. And honestly, that was a fateful mistake. They gave away way too much centralized power.
90. That is the staggering number of years Pharaoh Pepi II ruled. He actually took the throne when he was just 6 years old. But here's the catch. That absurdly long reign basically hollowed out the central state. Combine an aging, weak king with those power-hungry regional governors we just talked about, then throw in some severe famines, all of that triggered the very first total collapse of the Egyptian empire.
Which brings us to Section 3, Middle Kingdom and invaders, the first reset. Okay, so after a totally chaotic intermediate period, Mentuhotep II cruised north and reunited the country. This kicked off the Middle Kingdom. But it did not last forever. A string of short, weak reigns in the 13th dynasty left the door wide open for the Hyksos. Their name literally translates to rulers of foreign lands. They were a Semitic people from the Levant who originally just assimilated as simple traders, but by 1650 BCE, they used crazy new tech to take over. We are talking horse-drawn chariots and composite bows. They completely dominated Lower Egypt. And this brilliantly illustrates the wild tension of the time. The northern Hyksos king, Apophis, sent a hilariously petty message to Seqenenre Tau, the ruler all the way down in Thebes. Apophis complained that the noise of the hippopotamus in the southern ruler's pool was disturbing his sleep. Keep in mind they were hundreds of miles apart. This bizarre, petty brain-teaser of an insult was the absolute final straw. It sparked a massive, bloody rebellion. Eventually, Ahmose the Great stepped up. He actually turned the invaders' own chariot technology right back against them. Fueled by this intense shared hatred of foreign rule, Ahmose violently drove the Hyksos out. He reunited Egypt for a third time. And this victory perfectly set the stage for arguably the most famous era of Egyptian history.
That takes us to Section 4, New Kingdom heavyweights, egos and empires.
Now, what is really interesting here is just how incredibly diverse these rulers were. This is the 18th dynasty. It was a time of absolute superstars doing completely unprecedented things. You have Hatshepsut. She was a female king who absolutely shattered the papyrus ceiling to focus on trade and diplomacy. Then there is Akhenaten. He basically banned polytheism to force everyone to worship a single sun disk, a sun disk that honestly kind of resembled a frisbee. And of course, King Tut, a boy king who died young. He is really only famous today through the sheer luck of his tomb being accidentally hidden by building debris. It literally saved him from grave robbers.
Then we have to talk about Ramses the Great. He ruled the empire for an astounding 66 years. The guy was a total legend. He actually led his troops into the largest chariot battle in human history at Kadesh. And the best part? It was basically a muddy stalemate. But he brilliantly spun it into this massive PR victory for the Egyptian people back home. All right, On to our final chapter, Section 5, the final pharaohs, the chaotic carousel.
By 1070 BCE, the centralized state had collapsed yet again. It became this chaotic carousel of foreign invasions. First, the Nubians took over. They brought us King Paye, who hilariously ruled for a very mathematical 31.4 years. Then came the Persians. They were apparently obsessed with rugs, and they would severely punish locals if they mocked them. After that, the Greeks. Alexander the Great rolled in as a liberating hero in 332 BCE. He built Alexandria, and then he just suddenly died.
So after Alexander died, his general Ptolemy took over. And he created this really strange cultural mashup. It was called the Ptolemaic dynasty. These Greek kings adopted traditional Egyptian culture, and they enthusiastically dressed up like pharaohs. But they kept Greek as the official government language. So they completely left the native population in the dark. They practically invented the phrase, "Hey, it's all Greek to me." The dramatic final act of this whole saga belongs to Cleopatra VII. She totally embraced Egyptian culture. She even styled herself as the goddess Isis. She desperately tried to keep Egypt independent through these incredibly high-stakes romances with Roman leaders like Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, but it was a failed gambit. She and Antony were completely crushed by Octavian at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE. She ended her own life, and that was it. Game over. That definitively concluded 3,000 years of independent pharaonic rule.
In 31 BCE, this once unconquerable, mighty empire officially became just another Roman province. It stayed under Roman and later Byzantine control for centuries. Finally, in 641 AD, the Romans themselves were conquered by the Rashidun Caliphate, and just like that, the region was pulled into a completely new historical era. So the crucial point is this. We are talking about 3,000 years of continuous civilization, hundreds of pharaohs, all of it sustained by one single, miraculous river. It is the ultimate story of unity, hubris, and collapse. But it really makes you think, if an empire this epic and this culturally dominant can eventually fall and just become a footnote, what does that mean for the seemingly permanent superpowers of today?